Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live. We have this composition right here, 10 inch by 7 inches. It'll be the same composition that we tried on the dark blue matte cardstock, and I thought I would do a daytime version of the same setting. I might use a different kind of visual anchor point than the deer this time, but I don't know, we'll figure that out when we get to it. All right, so I've already stamped out all my imagery on here in dye-based black ink. I was kind of debating on whether or not to do it in StazOn, but I thought I might want to use some alcohol inks on here, and I didn't want those to interfere with the solvent ink version of the impressions because alcohol inks will dissolve solvents. Okay, so a lot of art foamies used on this. Well, not a lot, too, in the forms of these large tree trunks right here. I'll add in some foreground later. Hello, Denise, how are you? And let's see. I want to do the coloring first before I add in my foreground in here. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a, kind of a dusk, sunsetty type of scenario. I was thinking about just blue skies up here or with some white clouds, but I thought let's make it a little bit more dramatic because we have this one to live up to. And, it's kind of dramatic with that gigantic full moon. If we're going to do this kind of comparison contrast type of thing, we want this to be reasonably, exciting of a scenario with some nice rich tones. All right, so this is the cloud alto cumulus right here, and I'm going to stamp it in brown. Okay, so if my color scheme is going to be these warm, sunsetty golden tones in here, I want to color my sky something within that range. That's generally what I do. Not all the time, but just the theory is that the sky tends to be, barring artificial light or something like that, it sets the kind of the color of the entire scene. So if it's a sunset that we're looking at in the real world, that golden light's going to be reflecting off everything. So, the clouds, during sunset or twilight, they're probably not going to be the same color that they look like when it was, high noon or something like that. Okay, so with the alto cumulus, you can just put it horizontal like that. Or if you want to go for a little bit more drama, what you do is you angle it to create a little bit of it kind of creates a visual movement within a scene if you have diagonals in there somewhere. It could be in the form of some imagery or just kind of the way you color things and the textures you create. But the skies are a good way, an easy way to create those diagonals. Sometimes I stamp clouds at a bit of a slope or something like that. Like instead of going like this, you do it like this. Or you can go really dramatic and go, practically, I don't know, whatever, 45 degrees or something like that. And that's always fun to do. All right, so we're getting these textures in the background, and then we have this other open space here. And we'll do the same over there. Okay, I'll just generally try to keep the same angle. Hello, Bonnie. Semi-gloss, 10 by 7, Bonnie. So coated, but, not coated too much. It's much closer to a matte than a glossy. So it's not like halfway in between a matte and a glossy. It's more, I don't know, I'd say it's like, I'm guessing it's like a 10%, coating on there over a matte. So one of the kind of the descriptions for it is satin, or some places call it dull. All right, I have some ink on here. I notice it right here. It's that black ink on there, and that's resisting my ink a little bit, so it's a little bit blotchy in some ways here. So, but that's not going to matter because this is kind of a textural stamp. But I could kind of wipe this off a little bit more and get a cleaner impression, but I'm not going to worry about that. What I am going to do, this is kind of a mono value impression of the clouds there. And you can do this with any clouds. You can even do it with the cloud cumulus. You can build up different values of sky, clouds, and textures for added depth. So this is going to be a little bit lighter on my horizon, and it's going to be darker up here. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go for some darker impressions up top here so that I get some of those transitioning values just inherently in the impressions too. So we can just do it all with sponging on color too, but I find that it works really well to do it with your imagery as well. So another example would be like water texture. In your water, what you do, instead of stamping it out with one color, you do this, like if it's a lake or a pond or whatever, ocean with that's blue, let's say, for example, then you use this one in multiple colors of blue, multiple values specifically. All right, so, and there's a video for that one too on the channel. I think it's just, I don't know, Stampscapes, how to do water or something like that. All right, let's see. By the way, I know people that have used the water texture for their sky too, or the cloud cumulus. It's like a mackerel sky. I've seen people use this for water too, so they're kind of interchangeable that way. I mean, this one's more watery and this one's more cloudy, but when it comes to landscape stamping, you can use them in both regions, sky and water. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to go for a second impression of this brown down this way so that I can carry on that darker brown stamped in between those trees over in this area too. But maybe they'll be a little bit lighter like that. All right. So there we go, like that. Okay. It looks kind of weird right now, but you'll see how it all comes together when we add in our tones in there. Now I can do the same thing down in this water with some textures down here. But the thing about it is, because water tends to reflect things that are going up in the sky or, objects next to that body of water. But from a textural standpoint, this is pretty busy down here with this grass texture. This is pretty busy up here with the sky textures. Again, when you have these textures of these trees around here. I think this is where, you don't go off of, well, you don't all have to go off of, the idea of reality anytime, okay? But just from a design standpoint, my design choice for right in here is just to leave it as is. It's just kind of a quiet area visually instead of having texture, like, you know what I mean? Everywhere. Okay, it would just kind of, I can mellow it out. Even if I did put some texture down there, I can mellow it out, or I can put a very light texture in here, but I'm just going to leave it as is, just, as a break in the visual volume, so to speak. All right. So anyways, if I didn't mention, I stamped everything out before I started this video. Hello, Patty. Because this has taken a lot of ink right here, and my art foamies, impressions are spongy, foam things. And I just didn't, I know I was going to use a lot of color on here, so I wanted to stamp everything out and then heat set it all before I started coloring in here. I might start blurring some of the images anyway, but I thought, much less prone to doing that if I just kind of heat set everything ahead of time. Okay, so let's use a base coat color on here, a nice rich kind of brown tone of some sort. Hello, Cynthia. Like your distress things, if you have an antique linen, an old paper, or something like that. Chances are you're not going to have the peach Bellini, but that just happens to be a re-inker that I have a lot of here. Pale orange would be a good one from Marvy. Memento Desert Sand would be a great one. Any kind of just kind of light, warm tone, okay, as your base coat layer. And what this will do is it'll start the coloring process. I'll kind of get the gist of my lighting scheme in this process right here, but it'll also kind of moisten the page for my other colors to come. And if the page and areas are already kind of a little bit damp, I mean, it's not going to be super damp because it's my first coat and the paper is going to be absorbing a lot of the moisture. It's just easier to blend in all your colors over the top of something that's not absorbing it so fast. Okay, so that's where your base coat layers come into play, which you don't have to do in the layered dye-based ink process, or you can color this in with colored pencils or something like that. If I was doing it with colored pencils, I'd still give it a base layer of some kind of common color with colored pencils. But this is just going to go so much faster, though, in theory. You just got to make sure that if there's areas that you want to remain the white of the paper, that you don't go over it with this. Okay, so, just keep that in mind. But look at this right here. So on this tree, now this is going to be one of my lighter colors that I'm going to be using. So I am going to go for some pretty decent coverage. I might leave a couple areas in here, like on maybe the water or something like that. That's a little bit lighter. Okay, I'm smearing around some of this ink because there's a lot of dried ink built up right there. So you can see it's a little bit of a grayish tinge like that, with this ink right here. If you're worried about kind of, smearing something too much, then tap as opposed to drag on the surface, okay? So we got a couple large trees, pretty much taken care of as far as a base coat color. I like using the re-inkers too because you get a lot of ink on here and you don't have to re-ink it as often. It just makes things go by really, really fast. And if you're using a nice absorbent type of material, paper towel in this case, or a sponge or something like that, it's going to absorb a lot of that moisture, and therefore you have a lot of moisture or ink to transfer, okay? I didn't always used to use re-inkers as my first color. I don't always do it. Sometimes I don't know. Maybe I don't have a color that would be appropriate for a universal tone to use over everything. Most of the times I do, though, but sometimes I don't. But when we started doing this, when we started using base coat colors in a workshop, when I used to teach in-person classes a lot, when I added in that first color with the re-inker fluid, it's like everything that answered the whatever, any type of issues anyone ever might have had, just instantly. And it was almost like 100% people, because if you have a lot of moisture on your applicator, in those cases where we're using the color box stylus tool, which is a sponge tip, everyone really got a good layer of their first color down, because they were transferring so much ink onto their surfaces. And plus, it showed them how much ink they should really be using to make things go so much easier. Everyone's scenes were perfectly blended. And again, it just made it like foolproof. When you're teaching sometimes, 12 or as many as 25 people, and you're trying to get around everyone. When we used to be inking it up in the pad and then tapping, inking up, it took a while. I mean, I showed you, that's what we did for years. But that re-inker really solved things. Okay, so this ink up here, this brown, is really, really wet still on here. It's not sopping wet or anything like that, but I can just feel it when I'm kind of dragging this around a little bit. I'm dragging especially that lighter brown in there, so I'm going to be a little bit careful about that. But again, this is a base coat layer, and things are going to be getting pretty saturated in here, so I'm not really worried about the smearing so much as I don't want to drag in certain darker tones and to darken out areas that I want to retain the lightness. Okay, what I mean by that too, up here in the sky, I like to have a little bit of variation in here, of lights and then darker areas and lighter ones like this. Just because it looks like light is reflecting off of some of those clouds. Okay. So we'll go with something like that. Okay. Now I have this area in the water, and I want some of that lighting to be reflected off of the water. When we're working on the darker pieces of paper like this, we had to, rely on white over the top of this dark blue paper like that. So that's white pigment ink, white, and a white acrylic paint pen. So we're adding the white back into it. But in this case, on this paper right here, we're going to define it, that reflective light area, by the use of shadows. So instead of creating light on dark, what you're doing is we're creating light, or a lighter area, with the use of something darker like this. So we'll go like this, and just like up here, I kind of create a little bit of a oscillation of light and dark in there with some streaks like that. Okay, so go like that, and we'll have a little bit of lightness right within there. And this tree is going to be creating a shadow in here, so I'll add a lot of this tone right in here. It's a really super light shadow because this is a really, really light color that we're working with. But that should do it. Okay, I can't even remember. I think did I ink this up twice, or was that just the one time? I can't remember if I added some more ink to this. I think I added some more, so that was like 2 inkings, and there's a lot of ink on here, so this is a pretty good amount of coverage in here of that first base. You can see how shiny it is with that ink on there. That's that wet ink right there. And you can see this surface right here is not really that shiny, even though it's a semi-gloss. So you see it like that. You can see how much ink has been transferred on there, and that's going to make it so much easier for me going forward here. Thanks, Bonnie. Okay, so let's see. Let's go with some warm tones in here. I'm wondering if I should use the same one right here. It has a lot of black on it, and I'm going to be dipping into my... Yeah, let's just switch up paper towels here. Let's go with a little bit of a cleaner one. This padded here is starting to crumble. It's probably 30 years old. Now maybe this one is a little bit newer than that. It could be... It's not 20. It's older than 20. We were young stampers back then, you and I. When that pad was born. All right. I'm going to have this kind of warm glow coming from that surface down there. All right. Or the horizon. And I don't want to make it all yellow down there. Okay, I want to retain some white because I want to add in some white pigment ink at the end. And if you don't retain a little bit of the white of the paper, the white pigment ink can look kind of strange unless you add it everywhere, like in a dark piece like this. So anyway, I will add it accordingly, meaning kind of selectively, and I mean, you don't have to be too careful. I'm just, I'm just not going down into like that area down there. Sometimes people get moving really fast and it's like, oh my God, what happened? I lost all my light. And sometimes that happens because when we're adding it, we're looking at that one little area that we're adding it, and then we're looking up here. So we have like a tunnel vision in terms of where we're adding something. But remember, you have to kind of zoom out and take a look at the overall piece and see how it's looking. All right, so let's see. So let's see, I'm getting a little bit of a dull version of that just by kind of lightly dabbing it down there. I'm going to add some of this color up into these trees. This is some, I forgot what type of pines these are, where there's, I don't know if it's like a deciduous pine, but they change colors, during the, like the fall. There's yellow and red tones. All right. So a little bit dull down here and light, and it'll go brighter up top there like that. And let's do the same type of thing. It's not just going to be in the sky, though. We're going to have this kind of warm light over a lot of different things here. Hello, Jeannie. Don't let me interrupt that stamping there. That stamp expressionism that you do. All right, let's get some warm tones on these trees here. Okay. Now, I don't want yellow trunks here, okay? This is just kind of a base layer. There's going to be a lot of darker brown tones over the top of that, but sometimes if you don't have some of that colors of the, whatever, the light over areas, they can seem a little bit disconnected with the scene. So sometimes you want that, though, to create, kind of visual separation and, contrast, color contrast between things in the background. But most of the times for me, I have it kind of a little bit more integrated, okay? All right, let's see, like that. What step are you on right now, Jeannie, of the of stamping? Are you making impressions? Are you coloring, or are you on your working with your paintbrush, or Dr. Martens? Jeannie's thinking, don't bother me, I'm stamping. All right. I think that is it for that. Yellow's down here. I will start to go into kind of the separate, or the different hues here. Eventually. Okay, so we have our kind of beige tones and brown tones in here. Or brown, I don't know, whatever, the peach Bellini. It's kind of a tan. color. But let's start moving into the different separate or distinct color schemes. So this will be kind of the warm tone browns up top in the sky. These little tree trunks will be nice and dark brown tones, okay? And this down here, I'll move it into the like greens. So let's start doing that right now. Let's go into the distressing peeled paint. Okay, I just switched off to another paper towel for my greens down here. The peeled paint kind of looks like the color that's already on here because that yellow and brown we're mixing and kind of giving it more of an aged look. You can bring some of the green up in your tree trunks. Green tends to look really good in the trees or underneath or blended into browns. Kind of gives it that kind of mossy, earthy looking brown tone. And vice versa, you can bring some brown tones into your grasses. Like that. All right. So that's it with the green, or that one green. Like that. So I have a different range of green tones right here. Celery. I don't think the celery is going to do anything. Well, it's a little bit brighter of a green, I guess. Which makes sense. You know, the distressing colors are, you know, they're supposed, for the most part, they have brighter ones now, but, you know, in theory, they're supposed to be kind of real aged looking, so they're, you know, not super bright in terms of the intensity level of them. Oh, you're coloring. Any particular time of day or season for your piece, Jeannie? Is it a winter or? Okay, let's see here. All right, so see this still retaining those little areas of light, and those little areas of light like that will really kind of sparkle, and I feel they create a big difference within this space right here, or any space. That's why I leave kind of areas of light within all the different regions. So we have a little bit of light up in the sky. That in this case, it's like on the horizon. Not so much on these trees because they're kind of solid, but maybe I'll leave a little bit of light. See that right here? I left a little bit of light on this left-hand side and on the right-hand side of this one right here, so that I'd have some light coming through there. So, I mean, I do have some light on that side of the tree too, right over here. But it's kind of, you know, different degrees of light retention, but there usually is light retention in all the different regions and objects, just to make them look more three-dimensional. If you look at like everything on my desk here, you know, everything has kind of a lighter and darker side to it. You can see it right in the pads here, and the top of the pad right here, it's darker and lighter on the sides, right? But it's still the same white. So pencils, everything right here, my hand is, you know, light and shade on there. So I just generally, you know, keep some little bit of light on something. Not all the time, but if I don't retain some areas of light, and it doesn't always have to be white, you know, it's just a lighter area. And sometimes I color too much. And, you know, I was saying what, you know, some people do is they kind of start coloring in and they're kind of focusing on one little area. And then it's like, oh my God, I colored in the whole thing. Well, that's when I just go back in the end, if I want to add that contrast back into it, I just add in some white pigment ink over something, or I add in a little bit of shimmering light area, lightness with paint pens, you know, stuff like that. So don't sweat it. if you don't retain. It's just that if you retain it, you know, there's just less work to do later on too. So, okay, so that was some of that green down there. And I'll work on that green a little bit more too, but let's go in with that same brown that I stamped out that cloud alto cumulus in, okay, the mackerel sky. But I'll also use this brown right on my trees like this, okay? And you don't have to color in the whole thing. Like, see, I'm going right here. That little area just kind of stayed light. I mean, you know, I'm thinking, oh, that might be a kind of a good little area to keep light. Or if it's too light, maybe I can put some tone over the top of it. I mean, I'm still going to get quite a bit darker, so even if it's darker now, I can make it much darker or lighter by contrast later on. So even if that little area right there gets that dark, you know, you just make the area around it darker and it will stand out as light as you build your tones. So this is really blending really easily for me too. As I'm going on here, you know, I can move it around like that. I can color like this. I can use different movement or something like that. And it's all blending in because this page is still a little bit moist. You can see my ink, you know, kind of glistening. This one was stamped, you know, this one was colored with that green, what, 5 minutes ago or something, or whatever, and it's still a little bit moist. So again, it just makes it so much easier to blend on here. Okay, now see this right here, I'm coming down into my grassy area with some of that brown. It doesn't read as brown because it's going over the top of that grass, over that green. But see, it kind of makes it kind of a nice earthy looking green right in here. It's more mellow, it's not as like a hot green. All right, let's get to this tree right here. I'm kind of tapping because I get a little bit more of a transfer of ink because it kind of builds up on there. What you'll find is that when you get your page kind of a little bit moist, sometimes if you're doing this type of application right here, you're kind of wiping off some of the ink as well as transferring it. Because the surface starts to kind of achieve a super saturation. Okay, but you see right here, you see what that green kind of did underneath the, how it influenced that brown in there. You see little tinges of it. I mean, it doesn't look like, oh my God, that's like a super green tree or something like that, but it really harmonizes with this brown, I mean, the green kind of forest floor area really nicely now. Okay, so that was the brown down there, or up, you know, up and down the tree trunks. Now let's use some of that same color in our sky. So we're using the color that we've stamped out our sky in to blend in that same area. Okay, I want that to be fairly dark up top there. I don't know about black, but pretty rich with tones. So I'm going to really build some of that color up there. And plus I'm going to have these overhanging tree limbs coming in here. Or leaves, you know, just like right in here, right in the end. Same thing, I'm going to put these those reeds down here too. Okay. Actually, now that I say that up there, maybe I don't need to take it too dark because the leaves are going to be making it darker anyway. You know, just having them stamped up there. All right, let's see. Let's move this along here. When I know to move on to my next color is when, if I have a lot of other colors to go. when I knew to move on to my next color, it's when adding more of the color that I'm using just isn't making it any darker. You know, this brown is only going to get so dark, but you know, the question is if I've achieved kind of a full saturation of it at any given time. So you can always try it and just, you know, you can see, like, see, that's a little bit darker right there. It might dry a little bit lighter, but I think I can go a little bit more on there. Okay, and before moving on, and we're almost done with the trees right there in terms of the ink. I might use some colored pencil on it too, but here's a dark brown right here. It's a pretty dark one. I'm going to use the same applicator here. It might go a little bit faster if I start off with a new one, because this is going to have all those other colors in there, and I'm going to dip into the dark brown, so it's going to be some combination, but I just find that it kind of blends in with the background a little bit more if you just keep using the same one. Okay, now I'm going to use this one a little bit more on the right side of this trunk because we'll have the lighting coming from this way. So I'll darken the right side of the trunk. And we'll see how it looks. I mean, I didn't decide, you know, it's a little bit too light, and we'll just kind of darken in, you know, the whole thing or something, but I think it generally looks pretty good if you kind of start, you know, refining that lighting by having darker sides to kind of prominent objects here, or areas. So on this little grassy area right here, we'll use some of this one as well. But when it comes to things like tree trunks or something like that, I generally like to have them darker at the base, and it doesn't have to be a lot lighter as you move up there, but you know, maybe a little bit at least lighter up top. And that's, I tend to think that it looks like the tree is a little bit more anchored into the scene if you kind of make it a little bit more heavy, you know, heavily weighted at the base, meaning just darker. All right, so seeing like this right here. That area right there is a little bit lighter. I guess it's still a little bit lighter, but I've darkened it. I was thinking about keeping it lighter, but eh. All right, I'll keep this little area a little bit lighter like that, okay? See this coming together? Go a little bit more at the base, a little bit more at the top, like that. Okay, I think the trees are nicely kind of visually sitting in the scene a little bit more. Let's try this bottle green. It's really, really dark as a green tone. And let me blot some of it off a little bit. Yeah, it's really dark. Like that. Look at that, how that shadow looks in there. It's really getting the tree to kind of sit. It's like anchored into that, you know, the scene now. Kind of taper it off a little bit like this. So it's a little bit darker right here, but then kind of lightly blend it out a little bit, okay, like that. I'm kind of blending it up too, like this. Like that. So a little bit of stronger light there too, or shadow, makes the lighter area seem lighter by contrast. Let me try this right over here on this tree. Right over here. It wasn't getting a lot darker just using the brown, so sometimes if you kind of break out of the hue and go to a different color in here, like you wouldn't think about like purple in here, but maybe that would work pretty good. All right, so see that right there? That's some green right there. That got pretty dark right there. I mean, it doesn't look like green because it's over the top of, you know, whatever, 3 shades of brown or something like that. But I think that looks pretty good like that. It's a little bit too greenish right now for me, but I'm going to be going over it with black too, so. Some dye-based inks too, they don't all have the same viscosity, okay? I'm not talking about brand, I'm talking about even colors within brands with whatever chemistry those colors are made from. So some colors just, they're thinner. And dye-based inks work by staining a surface. So this bottle green, I think it's dark, but I think it's thinner than that dark brown because it's really, anywhere I add it, I could see it. It's staining it really prominently. Because I think the viscosity is just thinner. Okay, all right, so see how that's kind of coming around. See, I think those trees look pretty, whatever, lively in there like that. Hello, Megan. Hello, Mama. Yeah, it makes a difference, huh? The thing is, when you shade something, okay, if you shade something 1 step darker, okay, it makes everything on the scene that's lighter than it seem 1 step lighter by contrast. And then plus, you know, when you're layering colors like this, it also, you know, these are transparent colors too, you know, dye-based inks or alcohol inks. So anytime you layer them, sometimes it's hard to layer alcohol inks because one alcohol ink on top of another one, it puts the one underneath it back into solution. But with dye-based inks, you're kind of putting these glazes onto the objects like that, and it's not really physically mixing with the colors underneath. So it's like putting transparent layer over transparent layer. And it can make, you know, things look really rich and deep on the surface. Okay, so I'm going back to some of this brown right at the top of that green again. Okay. Now, that being said, you know, speaking of alcohol inks, I can layer on some alcohol ink colors on here as well because alcohol over the top of the water-based inks won't put them back into solution because alcohol and water don't mix. So I plan on doing some of that. I probably don't, you know, if I take care of the stuff that it's just so much faster first, you know, with this, because this is going to go really fast in terms of coloring. But some of the more kind of detailed areas, like right in here, okay, or in the sky, or like certain areas on the tree where I don't want to get too close to that edge of the tree because I don't want to, you know, start coloring right here and it's going into my water as well. So, you know, you can go with like similar colors with your alcohol pens if you want to. Like I'll go along the edge right here. Is there any ink in here at all? It's like super light right here. Okay, and the cabin right here. I got a little bit of that greenish tinge in my cabin, but no problem. I'll just go in here with my alcohol inks and color that in a little bit like that. Let's see, here's kind of a warm tone, sunlight yellow. Maybe that's too yellowy. Let's add some of that in here. I didn't really do a great job of blending my dye inks into that little space right here. So I'm going to try to refine it a little bit with some alcohol inks and colored pencils, okay? See, it's giving a little bit of a brighter tinge up there because, you know, when I was doing the dye-based ink over dye-based ink, I was kind of smudging and dragging some of that color off my black. So you can just go in here like this and, you know, get some of those pure colors that you might have wanted in those areas to begin with. All right. Let's get some of this into our grass as well, maybe. Just kind of brighten it up a little bit. It's not really blended, but I'll do that with my colored pencils, okay? Let's see, let's get a little bit of glow right up in here. A lot of times in my process, when I'm doing layered colors, okay, as you can see here, I mean, it's coming together pretty good here now, but you know, some of these areas didn't look good, right? You know, after the first, you know, 2 or 3 coats of colors or something like that, it looked a little muddy and dull or something like that. But with, you know, we have a lot of other media that we can use to refine things, you know, at other points in the process. So there's a little bit of a brownish gray. I'm going like right along that water's edge right in there. You can hit it right down here in some of these shadow areas of the grass. Let's go with some more gutsy, brighter tones in these trees up here. Let's go with this almost like canary yellow here. All right. This isn't like a science here. I'm just looking at my pens and just kind of grabbing at some pen colors here that are kind of related to the color scheme. Here's a brown right here. Okay, let's maybe use some of that in some of these shadow areas, or we can see, you know, if it does anything at all. You know, just to create a little bit more variation. Now, in terms of sequencing, I would probably recommend doing the alcohol inks over the top of the water-based inks. I think it'll stick to it, where if you lay the alcohol inks down first, you know, it tends to dry with that kind of that sheen to it, and I think it would seal off the paper. So I don't know if the dye-based inks would be able to penetrate that type of alcohol ink application. So you put the alcohol inks after the water-based. The same thing if you were doing stuff with, like, you know, painting a house or something like that. You know, you can go over like water-based paints with oil, but sometimes if you go over like oil with water, you know, the water-based will start peeling because it didn't really adhere to it. All right, so here's some gray. That rooftop up there is kind of bugging me. It needs a little bit of tone. There's no tone on it at all. But I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm just hitting it with a really pale tone. Let's go with, let's try, how about some of these two colors right here? It's a little bit of an orangish yellow, then that one's like a light orange. It's kind of a prominent lighter tree right here that I'm coloring in. And there's some other ones in here too. Let's go with this orange now. And I think that orange might stand out a little bit too much, but I'll just blend it. No, it's not too bad. I was going to say it's blending pretty well because I have a good coating of, you know, that the other alcohol inks underneath it. Okay, but I'll go with the darker one like that, and then I'll blend this in a little bit. So I'm using the lighter one, almost like a blending, a blender pen. So that's pretty bright right up there. And I do need to bring the brightness up here up a little bit higher now to match that color intensity. So I think this shows promise right here in terms of a pretty bright green. I'm kind of scumbling around like this a little bit. And I'm adding it a lot in the darker regions, and then I'm kind of going into the lighter ones a little bit, again, because I want to retain that lightness in there, so I don't want to color in the whole thing. I just want to bring kind of an intensity down here so that it matches, you know, the background a little bit more. And let's see, let's do this right down here. Let's make this shoreline a little bit more grassy right over here. You know, to give that shoreline something to relate with down here. And let's see, here's kind of an olive green right here, kind of at the base of that grassy area. We'll make it a little bit darker like that. Kind of go a little bit darker green underneath that tree to create a little bit of shadow work like that. All right, you can see all my alcohol ink on my trees right here, right? When I hit this with a Krylon spray fixative, it's going to unify all of these different textures in here, okay? So I'm not worried about that because I'm going to spray seal it anyway. But you can see all those glary kind of, you can see where, here, this is a good thing because you can see where I've added the alcohol in here like that. So it's like not, you know, a super careful application. You can see it even down here in the grassy area. You can see where I've kind of, it's almost like scribbling, huh? Like that down there. But this is the way it looks right here. Okay. We just have a lot of like, you know, super bright lights in this room. So it's really glary, especially at this angle for the camera. All right, let me get a little bit of modeling on these rocks right over here. Let's go a little bit darker on that shoreline. And let's try out some colored pencils. We've taken care of a lot of this in here already, where it, you know, I don't think we'll need to do a whole lot more in here. But we can do some kind of refined shading kind of within objects or right here next to the shoreline. I can hit some shadows underneath this tree right here. You know, with this, you know, light applications of it's black, but you know, I'm using gray in here. I can kind of model some of the shadows a little bit more. you know, with black here. You can do it with browns and all kinds of different colors with, you know, that you have, you know, with your colored pencils too. The colored pencils can go before the alkalines too, you know. So, you know, those ones go in whatever order you want, if you do use them. Okay, this is also why I'm using the semi-gloss cardstock here, is because I can't use colored pencils really on like a glossy cardstock. It just won't transfer onto, you know, such a shiny, smooth, you know, coated surface. So all right, let's see. Let me try some of this green colored pencil in the grasses. You have a lot of control over the application of colored pencils too. You know, it's easy to control how, you know, dark or light you want an application just due to the pressure that you use on there. Let's see here. All right. I think this will be where I can refine my water a little bit more. Let's warm up this grass a touch, you know, maybe in the shadow areas. Sometimes the warmest temperatures in shadows, or are the shadows of things. So I'm kind of adding that little yellow down there. It's kind of making it glow a little bit. Like greens and yellows are on a color wheel, they're analogous colors. So, you know, green, yellow, right? So they're right next to each other on the color wheel. And when you add those analogous colors next to each other, it creates a color glow. So it's the same thing. It's like these yellows transitioning into, you know, those brown tones up there, like that, or orangish tones. Let's do something, let's have some fun up here too, if there's space for it. Let's add a little bit of pink up here into the sky. So there's just a touch of that pink. I don't know if you can see that, but see how that really adds to that little area. Let's try some of this pink over here too. So let's carry this pink up into here, and let's transition it down a little bit. Again, I want to retain some of that light, and I don't have very much of that light down there, so I can't use too much of this without kind of eradicating that lightest area. But yeah, it looks pretty good. See that pink right up there? I think that looks really good like that. Let's bring some of those colors down into this water too, because again, that water tends to be a nice reflective element. Something like that. How about on some of these trees even, maybe? The trunks? Just a little tinge of pink. Like that. Something like that. Okay. Glad you like it, Megan. Coming together slowly but surely, huh? Okay. See a little pink right there in that brown? You know, you seen that? I don't know when it came into fashion, but those like brown tones with the kind of the pastel blue or pastel pink. You started seeing that kind of combination of colors in a lot of design work. I don't know, was it in the 90s or 2000s or something like that? So it kind of harmonizes with that, you know, really nicely like that. So it's hard to believe that there's a lot of green in these trunks right here, but also the pink right there. But You know, this one you could still see a remnants of some of that green in there, but you know, those tree trunks really kind of harmonize really nicely with these background tones in there. Okay, let's do, I think that's a good amount of the colored pencil. Or let me see, do I have a, here's this color right here. This color is almost the same as like this one right here, this one. And I like that color, so let me use a little bit of that in here. In my mind, I've been thinking as I'm doing this, I hope that when I stamp my foreground imagery over the top of it, that it transfers and adheres on there. Because stamping on top of, you know, ink on top of alcohol and colored pencil, or waxy colored pencil, sometimes it doesn't, you know, it might not transfer, or it might not stamp on those types of surfaces very well. So I wouldn't say I'm worried about it, but it's thoughts cross my mind. All right, that is that. Okay, let's have some fun here with some of our pens here. I should have broke some of these out earlier and shook them up. Let's see. Okay, so those are the colors that are in there. Let's do some pink. Let's do some of these colors right here. Maybe those will be some flowers down here in the grasses right there. Real men aren't afraid of pink. Yeah, that's what I say. And there's pink over this whole thing, huh? I've kind of buried it, though. Oh, glad you like the grass technique, Mama Pillow. I was wondering about the shine of the alcohol. Yeah, yeah. Now, I can't see that alcohol ink shine at all from where I'm sitting. It looks like this, okay? But like I said, the spray sealant will completely unify everything. So we have dye-based inks, you know, water-based inks on here. We have alcohol inks, and again, completely different type of surface sheen to it. And then you have colored pencils, okay? Colored pencils I really can't see in here, especially on top of the semi-gloss cardstock. But these will have their own kind of, that looks like a Easter type of color scheme, huh? These will have their own texture too. You know, it's acrylic paint, so it'll be a little bit shinier. So, not that, you know, not that the spray sealant will kind of make everything look exactly the same, but it'll especially get rid of this type of thing right here where it has the most amount of glare. But again, it's glaring because, you know, I have these, you know, my lighting in here. I have like 12 fluorescent bulbs shining in here. You know, it looks like this really to me. Well, maybe a little bit more glary. So it's like picking up like every glare in here. Oh, and okay, so all this stuff too, this dye-based ink, especially when you use certain types of brands of pads, they dry dull, okay? But they look a little bit more deep and shiny, okay, when they're freshly stamped. Like that looks like deep and shiny. So when you spray seal this, not only is it doing it, wait, you're spray sealing to protect. I don't really think about protection because, you know, we're sending these cards to, you know, usually to adults or something like that. You know, you're not sending it to, you know, like a toddler or something like that. You know, it's going to be like touching it and, you know, touching it with wet hands and stuff like that. But it does intensify the colors that you've applied on here. It's just like if you're staining wood or something like that. You know, the colors, the depth of the grains look more intense, you know, when you stain it. You know, it's like completely different. Or if you wet like a rock at the beach, you know. you know, it looks different than when it's dry. But when you spray seal this, it's the same type of effect. All those layers that you laid down on there become much more kind of saturated and deep and intense. And then the unifying, the textural unification, kind of is another thing that provides if you do use, you know, multimedia, you know, with some of the media, you know, kind of having a different textural look, you know, in the end result. Okay, and that being said, okay, so if I was doing this on glossy cardstock, right? See how this alcohol ink looks kind of glossy? It probably won't show up as much on the glossy cardstock because the glossy cardstock is going to be, I don't know, wherever it is. I got some around here somewhere. It's just super glossy. It's glossier than this anyway. So the whole thing is going to be a little bit more shiny like a postcard. Okay, so this right here, as I'm doing this, I'm adding it to the kind of the top tufts of these grasses in here. So it's like where the top of the, I don't know, is that the term tuft? These top areas like this, where they're lighter right here, I'm adding these little dots, these little highlights in here. Okay, I'm doing it with the green pen. You can do it with white too, or only white. You know, the green looks, you know, I like using both the colors of the object as well as usually white. So if you're doing a scene in a sky with a whatever emerald green looking northern light type of thing up there, I usually go with, you know, some green stars and some white stars or something like that. Okay, let's see here. Hello, Darlene. How are you? Good afternoon. Good to see you. If there's any others watching, thanks for joining in, jumping in, and checking out some of the process right here. So I've added this right back in here. I don't know if you can really see that. You can just kind of see it down here a little bit more. But I've added it like on the top edges right in there. This one's like a rock, so it's not so much grass. But let's go to, let's do, let me see. Here's an orange here. Let me shake that up. And then here's a much brighter yellow right here. We'll add that up into that tree. We'll bring that tree to life. The tree, I mean, it has, you know, color depth and some intensity. It's not super bright because, I don't know, I've muddled some of the colors on there by coloring so much. I muddy up my colors all the time, by the way. And it's, I don't know. I don't know if it's from lack of kind of technique or something like that, but I tend to like just keep building stuff up. And I don't worry about muddying up my colors and, you know, that type of thing. I mean, I'd prefer to not, but I just know that these pens just kind of bring it out. Or even if it's just a white gel pen, one pen can kind of reintroduce kind of an element of crispness back into an area. So, you know, I don't have to get my coloring and lighting and all that stuff. Like, I don't have to be on point at every step of the way, just because I know that, you know, there's other things I can do later on. Okay, so see that tree is like really shimmering now. Just see all those dots on there? So it just kind of remedied my whatever. mediocre kind of color blending on there, you know, with the other media. Okay, now see these trees right in here? Those are kind of deciduous trees in between those evergreens, so. But they're kind of, you know, they don't really, they lack for kind of contrast and texture, so I just kind of add some of this back into it, like this. And, you know, it just kind of reintroduces a little bit of lighting and shimmer into that area like that, okay? And so it's the same thing with down here. The grass was looking okay before. Maybe because I'm doing it in live stream, I'm kind of being a little bit more careful not to blend out all that and kind of make it too muddled. But, okay, now here's a yellow right here. And let's do the same type of thing in these trees, but maybe I use a little bit less. I don't know. I'll just kind of let it develop and see how it's looking. I'll decide if I want to add, you know, more of this or not. Just accordingly. Okay, so I'm adding it kind of on the top areas of some of these branches. That looks way better than, you know, what it looked like before. Okay, so see that tree is really kind of shimmery now. Okay. Kind of that fall tone you can put in some of the little, whatever, needles or leaves down, kind of falling on the ground underneath the trees too, or in here. It's in like the water right in here. Bringing this one to life, or these ones over here to life, like that. So you see these trees kind of standing out a little bit more, and that's just the acrylic paint pen. All right, let's see. Let's go with this beige-ish tone. And you see these rocks over here? They're kind of muddled a little bit. I mean, I didn't color them in too much, but I'm going to come in here and add a little bit lighter. One of these is getting empty on me, I think. Maybe it's this one. I think this pen's almost empty. Oh yeah, I can see it. I don't have any paint in here, no wonder. Here, I have another one that's real similar. Like these ones right here. I guess it's good that these Artistros are see-through or translucent in the back, because you can see how much ink you have left. But I find it really nice that to have like a paint pen or a gel pen that actually works to completion. Isn't that kind of relief, you know, after those years of like gel pens? Sometimes you buy them brand new and they don't work. Most of the like gel pens though these days in those big multicolor sets, pack sets, they're pretty good in terms of longevity. They made the inks thinner though, so they're not quite as bright and opaque as they used to be. But I'll take that any day over a pen that lasts like, you know, whatever, 2 months after opening, much less, whatever, 2 days or so. I don't know. Some of those pens didn't work right out of the packs back when. Again, this is the lighter tone, so I'm adding it right on the tops of the tree. Whatever branch clusters like that. Something like that. Glad you like the colors, Jeannie. Coming around, huh? Okay, now this one's a much lighter tinge right here, so we'll get that going in here for some additional highlights. These little dots can represent different things in that grassy area. If you kind of cluster them on the tops of those little clusters like that, it looks like highlighting. But if you kind of group them in little areas, it can also read as, you know, something like wildflowers in there. I mean, especially if it's in a different color. Let's add some of those in right now too. Oh, okay. Here's another thing too. I like going into my tree trunks here. You can see that tree trunk there. It's lighter, okay. And I'm going to go in there and kind of add that back in a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit too light, but I'm just kind of creating some of these trunks in here too, where they really don't exist on the designs, but I think those trunks like that, it just makes the tree stand out a little bit more dimensionally. Let me look at that now. Let me do that on the side of the kind of these posts on the cabin as well. Kind of like that, that. See, it makes that cabin look a little bit more dimensional too, doesn't it? Just those, I did that line right there, this one, and this one. It's going to make, it brought it out a little bit more. It looks a little bit more dimensional, I think. And see these ones right here, I just added in these little trunks right in here. They didn't go all the way up to the top of the tree, but I don't know, I think that looks a little nicer. You know, from a little detail perspective. All right, let's do this right here. Let's add in some of these little bluebells in here. Anyone live anywhere where there's like bluebells in the I don't know, whatever, in the wooded areas of your state? So when I looked at bluebells, it seemed like I didn't run into too many photos where you know the colors were like shades of blue or something like that, like a cornflower or a bluebell blue, but most of them were like really violet in tinge that I saw, most of them. But let's add a few of these down here like this. Okay. Yeah, I'm going with something that's pretty. Here. Let's go with something a little bit brighter and darker like this right here. Oh, this one right here practically looks just like highlights or something like that in there. I'm sure like on your screen that, you know, you can't decipher that kind of purplish tinge within that space right there anyway. Let's go. And this one I can't see at all either because it's like going with a dark color over a dark color. I don't know, maybe if I add in enough of these. I'll go multi-tone here. So we're doing this type of thing right here. Kind of 3 different values, you know, transitioning into pink right here. More with the pink, huh? You should, Candy. Yeah, take off your shoes and stuff, you know, and walk through here. It's supposed to have a kind of like a This grass in here has healing properties too, by the way. Or it'll just revive. And you can stay right in that cabin right there. That's the guest cabin right there for the healing meadows. All right, so see this little pink right down in here? That's pretty fun. I'm going kind of crazy down there. Sometimes when I do certain scenes, in terms of like bright colors, sometimes I'm a little bit conservative, and then I see like a photograph and it's like this gigantic carpet of like super intense like pink wildflowers or something like that, or yellow, and it's like all that intensity like right there, you know. So sometimes when I'm looking at those things, it's like, oh, I could go, you know, a little bit more with whatever colors, you know. And that goes for that. Like the flower, the latest is the flower field. I haven't gone with like a crimson red field of flowers, but I was looking at some photos, and just super dark, bright red intensity, and it's like, I need to break out and to do some of that. Okay, so this is a white pen. Adding down in the water, hopefully making it look nice and shimmery. We'll kind of cluster, with a pretty tight cluster of the white in that light area. And then what you do is you just kind of put a little bit more spacing in between the dots as you move into these other areas. Some people do like, line work too, or you can do brush work in there if you want to, with paint, something like that. That would be cool. Maybe I'll try that here. I'll just do it like this. I usually don't do too much line work in my pieces, but probably should, just to go for a little bit more variation. This area, by the way, looks pretty busy with all those dots, but I'm going to put in those foreground elements in there anyway, so it's going to cover up a lot of that. So I kind of overdid it a little bit with that in mind, or whatever, on purpose. All right. Let's get those foreground images here. I have a table full of stamps here. And I can't, it's almost at the point now, I was going to say, where I can't find anything, but I don't know, I just found it. So I guess it's not quite at that point where I need to clean up here. When you can't find anything that, or when you're looking around too much for things, that's the time to start cleaning up. Okay, let's see what this looks like without that glare too. Give you guys kind of a perspective here, right in here like that. I'm going to go with my hybrid ink first in terms of my impressions rate. Hybrid ink is a little bit pigment and dye together. So I just think the pigment aspect will give me the best chance of a really nice dark impression that's transferring onto that both alcohol and, in some cases, colored pencil, the wax of the colored pencil. Now I'm using the art foamies right here. Oops. And if you're just using the rubber stamps, I would think that you can use a StazOn ink, and that'll adhere to everything. You know, StazOn kind of in theory should be able to transfer onto just about anything and dry on it. That solvent ink, whatever, chemistry. All right, let me try this over here, and then if it does, well, we'll see if this works or not. I think it should. But again, I'm not absolutely sure here. Yeah, when you guys want to, stay right there. I don't know if my water looks like water. I might need to address that now that I'm looking at this area kind of upside down and with a little bit more of a objective view of it. Sometimes when you flip things upside down, you can see things that you didn't notice, right side up. Oh, okay. That really transferred with like zero problems here. I thought it might look a little bit kind of more grayscale over here. Like maybe the ink doesn't transfer onto some of that like thicker coating of the colored pencil. Okay, that's not zero issues here. So okay, let me go. I don't think I need to hold it down as long as I did there. Okay, now this looks really, really dark, but when it dries, it's not going to look as dark. But when you spray seal it, that might get darker, closer to how that looks right there, okay? So again, we're doing this type of thing right across the top, right there. I'll go with a little bit of a thicker cluster of it over here in the top left and right corners. I'm kind of rotating this leaf cluster around a little bit, just so it's not like so picket fence like this, okay? Like that is the same one as over there. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of mix it up a little bit, and I'll put this right down here so it doesn't look like the same silhouette as that one quite so much. So like that, okay. I can go even more here. Let's see, let's do this right here. And I'm inking up more than I think I'll need. Because I don't want to stamp this out. Oh my god, I didn't stamp, ink up this portion right here or something. I guess, if I had I guess I do have those different colors, but stamping this like in red tones or something like that, or green tones and black tones up there might be kind of cool too. You might be able to create a little bit more depth in your foreground by having multiple tones of leaves like that. And if you did it in green, it would kind of relate to your colors down below. The green up here, it would probably be a little bit more transparent, so you'd be able to see some of those textures through it a little bit. But then if you put the black ones right over the top, I don't think that's going to be any kind of issue. All right, so see that right there? It creates a lot more depth, I think, and it pushes back kind of my, I don't know, whatever, muddled sky area with all those colors back there. But I think it looks pretty good. in terms of that sky, those textures in that sky. It'll look a lot brighter too once I spray this. But here's what I'm going to do. Before I do this lower portion down here, let's add in, I almost forgot to do this, some of the white pigment ink applications, okay? Like this is like super, super wet right now up top, those impressions. So I don't want to do these impressions down here and then have to go kind of around them. It would get them, it would definitely smear them out a little bit. I say, yeah, Bonnie, I say, you know, Candy or whoever wants to walk through here barefoot, and I think you should lay down there and like put your hands out like that, you know. If you want to do a, you know, a grass snowman in there, you can. It won't hurt it, you know what I mean? Or it's like a, you know, lay down in this area. There's like some clover down there maybe. Okay, let's do some lighting touches in here. Lighting and texture and whatever atmospheric touches down here. Okay, so remember I've left that, if you were on here earlier, I've retained some areas of light within these spaces, okay? And that's for the purpose, well, it's for variation, but I also like adding in some of these little effects. My white pad's really, really dry. So I can add in some white next to there. So you see that kind of glow starting to happen? And I'm adding it in that white area, and then I'm adding it in those areas or objects around that light. Okay, so it's easy to blend in white with white, right? So I can blend in the same whatever value white into those areas around it, and it makes for a nice easy transition. I'm being careful not to go into that wet leaf right there, but see right there, you know, that little lighting on that tree right there is kind of cool. And then we have that little area of light right in here. And we can kind of add some of that like right into that space, and maybe it'll look like that light is kind of coming through there like that. And we have some lighting right here and down here. Let's add some more. Or kind of, it's kind of like you're growing, I don't know, you can think of it as like you're growing light out of that light area. Okay, so see this right here? I'm kind of moving this up into this area. Just gonna have kind of a more kind of a magical type of look to it with this, you know, this kind of this mist or illuminated mist or something like that to it. Like that. See, I'm kind of blending it out like that. If now, again, you know, I always mention this, but it's because none of, you know, when you do this at first, me too, sometimes, you know, like if I just re-ink this, sometimes I'm like going on with like way too much ink, and I'm like adding a blob of ink down there. Okay, so that's one of those things. So if you try this, what you do is you ink up, and chances are your white ink pad is probably going to be like, you know, 20 times juicier than mine, because I keep this one a little bit drier on the dry side. I mean, I do re-ink it, you know, every now and then, but I want that. See, it's like, you know, whatever, 10 taps and you can barely see anything, okay? Now, ideally, I'd want it a little bit wetter, okay? I'm going to have to re-ink this one probably right after this usage right here, but see that right there? You're going to get that if you have kind of a drier applicator like that. Now, here's the thing, you know, I'm removing Sometimes I'm removing just as much as I apply because I apply too much and I'm kind of wiping it off, okay? But now this area right over here didn't have like a white area, so I'm just kind of adding it in there like that. So you just kind of do it delicately. And if here's a tip too, if you ever try this, like if you add it in one area like that, let's say that's the only area that I added it in. When you look at it, it's going to look kind of weird. So just like all these little sparkly textures down here, if you only added on like one or two little things, it looks kind of out of place, but this is like its own kind of unique texture throughout this thing. So it's a soft texture. So you kind of have to add, more areas or objects that have that texture. But just do it really lightly, like that. You can just kind of test it out like that and see how it looks. And if you like it, you can add more. But again, just do it in a nice dry application. Kind of blot it off a few times. Maybe have a dark piece of paper. I'm not going to do it on this one, but you just kind of tap down and see how much is on your applicator. Then when you get it to the right consistency, then take it on there. And you almost want it to where you can't see anything being applied until you do like 15, 20 taps, okay? And then when you get the feel of it, then you can go much, much faster, in terms of your application rate. But, kind of when you're first kind of getting the feel of it. And sometimes I have to get the feel of it too when I re-ink my pad because, there's a lot more ink on here. So I have to adjust a little bit. See that kind of that haze right in between those trees right there? It's kind of like the light is kind of like pouring through these um, objects or areas in the background to the foreground. And see, this is getting a little bit darker because as it dries, it kind of gets a little bit more, it moves towards transparency. It doesn't become transparent, but it's still translucent, but it's just not as opaque as when you kind of first apply it. So you might have to apply, let it dry a little bit, and then apply more if you deem necessary. Okay, now on this one right here, you can see I have some of this lighting kind of coming around this tree right here, this trunk. I think I'm going to do the same thing right here a little bit, maybe. That's like 20 taps right there, and it's like hardly any kind of application, which is a good amount to have on here when you're doing it in such a dark area because it's going to stand out by contrast quite a bit. Potentially. Okay, let me add some of this down here in this grass. I like what's going on in this grass, so I'm not going to do too much. But let's do this. Let's add some of it right here. And then I think this looks good to add a little bit of it right here. Like this. Like around this trunk. So it's like on the insides of these trunks right here. I'm adding more right here. I think that looks kind of cool right around that trunk. See, I added too much, so I'm kind of wiping it off like this. It's almost like you're dusting it off. All right. Okay, something like that. All right. I think That should probably do it with the white. Like that. That's a little bit too much here, like that. All right. Reeds. Maybe I'll use the rubber version of it too, as well as the Art Foamies version, just to get a little bit more scale to it, or whatever, scale variation, if I can find it. I usually have that reed stamp right next. Here we go. Okay. Back to the hybrid black. I got to be careful when grabbing this up here because that's still pretty wet, I think, especially where it stamped over that wax. You know, it's not absorbing into the paper at all. We'll start with an impression right in this dark area. I don't know if I'll go with the smaller one. I was going to layer it in here a little bit, but I think that might be enough. Let's see. Let's make it a little bit denser though. That. Yeah. Okay. Now this is a folded card right here, and this is the same dimension. I don't know if I'm going to fold it, though. I might not. Which I was figuring I probably wouldn't when I started this. But I don't know. I guess if we want continuity, I would, but I don't know. And I'm saying that because on this one right here, I put this little cluster of reeds right there because it's going to be, you know, folded right there. So we have this kind of this framing little cluster, bottom framing in both the front and the back. Or someone was saying they'd like it, the idea of this being on the interior like that, where you just kind of open it up like that. But on here, well, let's see. I guess we do need something right in the center area. Here, I'll go like this. I'll just kind of really carry that over that way, like that. All right. So there we have it, I think. As I was doing this, I was noticing, oh, there's something underneath my paper right here, and it's this little blue pencil. I really like this blue pencil to finish off some areas. I need to be careful around those impressions right there, but I'm going to add in a little of this bluish tinge right in here into some of these areas where there's still a little bit of white. Not a real large application of it, but there's something to like this turquoise-ish color that seems to finish off pieces really nicely. Even this is a warm tone scene, but and I guess this is a kind of a warm blue, but I don't know if you can see it right in here. There's just a tinge of this blue right in there. And I think that finished it off really nicely in those areas like that. So anyway, all right. So we have our daytime I don't know. It's almost whatever I don't know, it's like sunset or twilight or something like that. Not Twilight the series, but time of day. And we have our moonlit one like that. Boy, they sure look different though, don't they? In terms of the spirit of them. Not just in terms of time of day, but just the texture on there. So that's like that. And I didn't put in that deer in there. That deer only comes out at nighttime, it said. And then we have the daytime one. Night. Day. Oh, I used a different cabin too. I was saying, wait, what happened? Oh, I used my nighttime cabin in this one. In this one, I used the day. Although, I mean, you could use that one in here and you just color out the windows, you know, but yeah. So different times a day or different season or something like that. Could be a different location too. But anyway, there you have it. Warm tone scene. Golden, I don't know. I don't know if it's so gold up top there in those skies. I might add a little bit more orange up there, but I'd have to wait till these dry right here. Then we'll spray seal the piece, and I think, it should be done like that. Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else I would add in here. I could add in like a little subject matter in here, like a person in here, especially in the water. I think it's too late to add something right in here. Although I do have those women that are kind of those engraved women. It'd be really cool having one kind of sitting right here, you know, within the scene. I'd cut her out though, and I'd put her in there, and then I'd add in some like shadow work underneath her or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, if Candy's going to walk through here barefoot, though, I don't want to like clog up the area right in here and make it too crowded with other people, so she can kind of commune with nature. All right, let's see here. Oh, your family wasn't sure you would wear shoes. And it sounds like he did wear shoes. I think he should have went barefoot, if he didn't. I think that'd be really cool. Hey, Jeannie, are you done with your scene? Hybrid black versus Marvy black. Yeah, the Marvy black's not going to give me that degree of contrast on this scene. Now again, that black right there is still wet, so it looks a lot darker than what it's going to look like when it dries. But when you spray seal it, though, like these trunks are going to get darker too when I spray seal it, I think. Okay, but yeah, the Marvy Black's a dye-based ink, and I don't think it's going to stick to all that colored pencil in the background there. It's just a watercolor, like, type of ink. And I don't think it's going to transfer and adhere to the wax or the alcohol ink applications that I laid down there. I mean, it might, but I doubt it, It'd be like trying to color something on like wax paper or something like that with water. I don't think it would transfer. So it's kind of the thickness of the pigment ink in that hybrid black there. Now, that being said, if we talk about something like a VersaFine Clair, yeah, it's an oil-based ink, so I don't know how. I don't think the colored pencil underneath will affect it so much where it won't dry, but it might not dry on top of wax because it's an oil-based pigment ink. But I think this one right here, I think I probably could have used a VersaFine Clair, and I think it would be fine. You might have to, kind of wait a couple days for it to dry, but I know it should be okay. Glad you like it, Darlene. A little bunny in there, that would be good. We can't make grass angles. Just about done. Looking forward to seeing it, Jeannie. If you haven't seen Jeannie's pieces, or if anyone's on Facebook, or if you're not on Facebook, you can create an account on Facebook and you can check out a lot of finished pieces done in all kinds of different techniques in the Facebook Stampscapes group. It's not the Stampscapes page, it's the Stampscapes group, so it's called Stampscapes Facebook 2. And I think they called it 2 because the Yahoo group, I think, was called like Stampscapes 2 or something. There was like a Stampscapes 1, and then they created Stampscapes 2 because, I don't know, there was a lot of people that were on Stampscapes, the Stampscapes group. And I don't know, some people weren't posting anything. So it's like, hey, if you're going to see my pieces, you got to be posting some of yours, too. So they created a kind of a more active group. Some people, back then, a lot of people didn't have scanners and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to post your pieces because everyone has a digital camera on their phone now. But back then it was like scanning things. So, not everyone had scanners. But anyways, those aren't run by me either. They're a peer run group. So the Facebook group there. But you just apply and they'll let you in. A little bit more blue in here. There we go, like that. See, I don't know if you see that little bluish tinge in there. Glad you like it, Cynthia. This one's going to look really nice when it's matted and kind of, matted off, framed off, or something like that. I think I'm going to put a little bit of a white around it. And I like, with these golden tones like that, putting it on the mirrored gold tone foil. So I don't have any right here, but not this one. This one's the holographic one. But yeah, this is going to look really great formatted. And plus it's all kind of ripply now like this. I don't know if you can tell, but when I heat set all this, it got a little bit wavy. And then now it's like really kind of sopping, permeated with ink on here too. So it's a little bit wavy and floppy. So getting it, I'm going to use a spray adhesive on the back of it to get a really even coat. I'm going to put it on a little bit, probably tan, probably not white, but tan. And then I'm going to put it on that mirrored glossy gold cardstock around, and I think that should look pretty cool. If it doesn't look good with the gold, I'll go with a dark, like black glossy or something like that. And anyway, I'll usually when I do that, I'll post it on Facebook or something like that too. So let me see, on your YouTube community page. Oh, so yeah. You haven't thought about doing that, Mama Pillow. I should do that, huh? The finished piece is just the single file. Yeah. Maybe I'll start doing that. I have it on the Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that community panel too much, but yeah, that'd be a great idea. I'll post this one and this one. I'll say, then we can do those community like questionnaires. Which one do you like better? I don't know. You guys have any kind of opinion about that? Which one of these do you like better? Yeah, like if you had to choose, do you like the dark blue matte composition with the white kind of lighting choices, or do you like the warm toned, more, whatever, invigorating color scheme? It's definitely more lively. This one right here, it's more kind of it's almost like, it's a different feeling though, isn't it? It's like meditation or something like that. It's just very quiet, of a scene, where this one's like super whatever, like I said, like, a little bit, lively. I don't know. Do you have anyone Here you can see them like a little bit more side by side like this. Right here. And maybe some people like hate one, or I don't know, hope you don't hate both, but yeah, maybe you don't like either. Some would say, hey, I hate the outdoors. But there's the two. I don't know what I'm leaning towards. I don't know. I do really like that if I look at that. But when I go like that, it's like, oh my God, that's like, it's really super lively and deep in terms of the color scheme. So, I don't know. I just don't know. It's like, oh, maybe I'd flip flop. It's like, okay, I like that one. And then, okay, no, so this one's not going to get like matted off or anything too. This one might look like better once I get it kind of like framed off, I'm not going to put it in like a frame, but I'm talking about, just matting around it. It might look good. Let's see. And Flickr. Yeah, my Flickr page is like filled up, so yeah. It would depend on the mood. Yeah, I guess that's mine too. Christmas and summertime, yeah. So I tell you what, so if you're getting into like some sweltering heat or something like that, maybe this is like more of a comfortable, cool tone scene. And if it's like not quite a, you know what I mean? Other times of the year, you could, look at this one on the replay. All right, just blabbering on here. Thanks so much for checking this out. Yeah, spring and fall. I do need that, huh? Well, this one would be the fall right here, I think, unless it's summer. All right. Summer in California, this would be all brown down here, though. Speaking of winter, I think this one could be just any time, any season during the at night. But when I'm thinking of this one right here, maybe I should do this in a more of a wintry scene, which would be this area in the front. It would be more reflective, like snow, like white in here. And then we could have like snowfall or something like, you could have like snow kind of on these trunks like this now that I think about it. Maybe it'd be too similar to that one though. I don't know. But anyway, all right, folks. Do a summer in paradise then. Lots of teal. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Maybe like summer, or I'd do another one of these too, or just a different color scheme. But I think adding those leaves up here in like greens and things like that. And maybe like that too. Maybe to have like shimmering green trees. Just, a ton of green in here. And then I would do this water. I'll do it more bluish tinge, just for a little bit something different in here. Like high noon or something like that, or like a morning, scene, but just more, blue sky, blue water, green trees type of thing. But then I think I would go with variations of green up here in addition to the black to make it look a little bit more, whatever, rich with tones. I think that might be kind of interesting, especially if you have a sky where you don't have too much going on in there. Like, it's just like, some blue, maybe a little bit of white up there too. Then you can give the variation in the leaves instead in that space, instead of it just being kind of like a foreground for whatever's going on in the background. And I'm just thinking out loud here. All right, folks, thanks again. Hope you have a great rest of evening or day or whatever time it is for you. Hope to see you on the next live.